Branstad had rolled out the red carpet to make it as favorable as possible for Energy Transfer Partners to build this pipeline from corner to corner in Iowa. We knew that narrative was not on our side, that people, especially those that didn't live in the path of the pipeline, largely didn't see the necessity of fighting Energy Transfer Partners. And we knew that we couldn't do it alone. CCI has a lot of power, and you've seen a lot of power in these rooms today, but we needed to reach out and go to other organizations and build a coalition. So that's exactly what we did, and we went to other organizations, and in August, so 3 years ago this week roughly, we heard the news, and by August we had a small coalition of a handful of groups in this state. Women's Food and Ag Network, I believe Sierra Club was represented, Iowa CCI of course, and Matt Olof's former organization Food and Water Watch, so we had national partners as well. And from there, we built it even further because we knew that wasn't enough. We knew we needed more voices. We didn't have enough power to defeat the big money corporate interests that were coming into our state. So eventually we grew the Bakken Resistance Coalition into over 25 organizations throughout the state and nationally. And we learned a few things along the way. One of the things we learned is it takes a lot of people power to defeat corporate interests that have been entrenched behind the scenes in our state for a long time. Ultimately, the Iowa Utilities Board, they couldn't see reason or didn't understand Iowa law. They didn't agree with us. They had a view going in that they were going to approve this no matter what. And so they did that. We learned a lot of lessons through that process. One of the things we learned is that we can't just be against these pipelines. We can't just do that work. We have to transition to something else, to fight for something instead of just against something. So that's something we're going to go forward with here at CCI, and we're going to make sure that we have a plan going forward in the future to produce what we need in this state, and that's 100% renewable energy. We need to do that and make sure it's democratically controlled, that our communities have control of that energy, that it's not Mid-American and Alliant that are dictating the terms by which we produce this energy. So we have a plan going forward to do that, and hopefully folks in this room can join us in helping make that plan happen, in organizing to push for that. So one of the other things I think we learned along the way is that we can't just rely on those of us in this room, that we need to build partnerships nationally. And we got a much needed shot in the arm, we got a boost when Native Americans at Standing Rock stood their ground and said, no, not here. And I think that reinvigorated our fight in Iowa, and it also allowed us to make some new friends that we hadn't known before. We had a tribe of Native Americans in South Dakota that came down to Boone County and set up camp and joined us in this fight against the Dakota Access Pipeline here in Iowa. And it was definitely something that we need to continue to build on and work on in the future. So we learned we have a lot of friends out there and that we can make a lot of friends through this work. So that was also a very rewarding thing. I know a lot of people now that I would have never known if I wasn't involved with this work. And one of those people is our guest speaker today. Judith LeBlanc is the executive director for the Native Organizers Alliance, and she's a member of the Caddo Tribe of Oklahoma. And she's here to talk about opposition to these pipelines and maybe share some fun stories from Standing Rock. Thank you, Judith.